Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about anxiety and mindset reprocessing, how to turn those negative thoughts into positive ones. So I wanted to talk about anxiety today because it is probably one of the biggest debilitators of health out there. And, if we let it spiral out of control, it can really harm us. So I think that's why it's important to address it and see how to not let it spiral out of control. I just want you guys to think about something. Everybody has anxiety, so think about when you get anxious, what do? Do you spiral out of control? Do you have coping mechanisms that you use to calm you down? How do you deal with or address anxiety? And just think about that for a few minutes. Okay, so if you thought about how you deal with anxiety, how many of you feel like your anxiety takes control of you and it just spirals out of control? And if you really stop and think about it, the key is to not let it get out of control. Because what is your anxiety doing for you? I always tell my patients, my clients, you need to step outside of yourself and think about what are you being anxious about? If it's, I don't know, a job, if it's money, if it's a relationship, what is that anxiety doing except causing your body to be damaged? It's not fixing the situation. It's not going to change the outcome. It's not going to make the outcome come faster. So you being anxious is only causing your body to be stressed. It's causing your cortisol level to rise. It's causing all your other hormones to go and help your cortisol level, and they can't do their job because they're helping something else. And it's not changing the outcome. So you need to stop that anxiety spiral before it really gets out of control. I asked my patient once, she was having such bad anxiety, and listen, you can get anxiety from different reasons. You can get anxiety from your hormones being imbalanced, especially perimenopausal women. That's a big factor because your progesterone is that calming hormone. Not to get too much into the female thing, guys, but actually men suffer from it too. So when your hormones drop, you get sort of an estrogen dominance. Or when a testosterone level drops for a man, they experience the same thing. Anxiety increases, depression sometimes, trouble sleeping, menopause or, menopause, perimenopause, men and women experience it. So that can cause anxiety too. So in that case, you have to adjust the hormones through supplements, diet, hormone replacement, whatever. But if you are just causing yourself anxiety and you can't get a hold of it, that is something you have to stop. You have to stop it before it goes out of control. So whether it's, like I said, analyzing the anxiety and talking to yourself basically as if you would talk to a friend and saying, this is not changing anything. This is not going to stop it. I need to stop spiraling. I was saying one of my patients, she was so nervous. She was worried about everything. And I said, what are you worried about? Give me one thing. What are you worried about? I'm worried about my son and my kids. My husband and my kids. I said, okay, are they okay? Is there something wrong? No, there's nothing wrong. No, there's nothing wrong. So you're just worried, causing yourself lack of sleep and giving yourself high anxiety with palpitations, and there's nothing wrong with that. And she realized what she was doing. But again, you have to stop that spiral. It's just like, it's a part of healing, okay? Anxiety, sometimes you become, get an OCD about anxiety. So we become overly obsessed about anxiety over our health, over our family, over money, whatever the case is. We become obsessively compulsive about it. And that's not good. You need to heal that. Just like when people say, I need a drink, I need a cigarette, I need a donut. That statement means you're pacifying something. You're using it as a coping mechanism. You shouldn't need anything. Okay, maybe once in a while you want to drink or you want to indulge in a donut. But when someone says, oh, I need a drink, you're stressed and you're using that as a pacifier. And you need to heal yourself so you don't have that need for something to pacify you. And it takes a lot of work, but it's once you get to that level and you are healed and you learn how to manage your anxiety and you learn that you don't need these pacifiers, that you are okay with yourself, that is the biggest key of all. And that like I said, I can't stress enough, the constant spiral of anxiety. What about this? And then what about this? And oh my God, this is going to happen. And this is going to happen. It's getting you nowhere. It's getting you nowhere except causing your body harm. There's no logic in it whatsoever. And once you realize that, things will change for you. Does anybody have any coping mechanisms they use to calm them down, or do they experience this, ripple of a anxiety spiral? Another thing I learned, especially as a single mom raising 2 kids on my own with really no help, the anxiety is through the roof because you're worried about your kids constantly. You're worried about money, you're worried about your job, and you're worried about who's going to take care of the kids and how they're feeling emotionally if you've gone through a divorce. So if you're a single parent out there, mom or dad, kudos to you, because it is not easy. It is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. But I learned to always have a backup plan and then have a backup plan for my backup plan. So this way I didn't freak out. It took me a while to get there. I used to run around like crazy, but if you don't stress about the anxiety and let the anxiety overwhelm you and over obsess about things you can control, like, okay, let me think about this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do this. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to do this. Then you're stopping the anxiety. There's no need for it because you have a plan, you have a backup plan, and you have a backup plan for the backup plan. So that's a coping mechanism I learned. So that's my thought on that. And I just wish, people could, whatever it is, whether it's meditation, whether it's setting some time out for themselves, which I talk about all the time, is so important, to give yourself self-care time, to work on yourself, to help manage your anxiety. And I find that kids nowadays, they have so much more anxiety. I honestly don't know if it's from just constantly being on their phones and constantly scrolling on things. I really don't know what it comes from, but kids are so anxious these days. They worry about everything, and they're kids. They shouldn't be worrying about things. They should be enjoying their lives, and it really, it hurts me. And they seem to have so many more issues than I think I had at their age. Breathing is another great tool. When we're running around and we're over obsessing, we don't breathe. We just kind of like take half breaths. So when you feel yourself getting anxious, again, I do it with my clients and my patients, those deep breaths in through your nose, blowing it out your mouth very slowly, and feeling your lungs exhale and empty. It is so calming. If you do it the right way, it will, within minutes, settle you down and calm you. So that's another coping mechanism that you can use. Anyway, so this is what I do in my practice. I believe that preventative care, and to really heal someone, you need to have all the aspects of preventative and healing medicine in order to work. And that includes nutrition, that includes exercise, that includes healing techniques, and obviously a medical background. So, a lot of these doctors will tell you, oh, you need to exercise, you need to lose weight, or, you're anxious, let's put you on anti-anxiety medication. But I don't feel like that's the answer. I'm not saying if people are in a really bad state, they might not need medicine temporarily. I do believe in emergent situations, medicine is necessary and it's saved lives without a doubt. But then learn the coping mechanisms or the nutrition or the exercise to get you off of them, if possible, which 9 times out of 10 it is. So, I'm a personal trainer. I teach people how to exercise the right way. Again, everybody's individualized, so for each individual, I'm a functional nutrition counselor, so we delve into the nutrition aspect. Functional nutrition is a little different than just nutrition itself. It's about getting to the root causes of issues and why they started, whether it be gut issues, emotional issues. So it digs a little deeper. And then deciding on what foods are best for you. I call it food fingerprinting because we all have our own individual fingerprint. So just like we should all have our own individual food plan. Keto, Mediterranean, that's great, but that's not necessarily what each person needs, which is why it works for some and it doesn't work for others, or it'll work temporarily and then it won't work. Because everyone is different, just like everyone has their own fingerprint. And obviously you need a medical background to understand the medical issues, the medical history. And you need, I'm a life coach also because, again, people need direction. They need a sounding board. They need someone to kind of suggest and guide them if they're lost or need direction. So you need everything, in my opinion, to really heal someone or prevent, disease and anxiety from taking over. I mentioned before about single parents, and for any parent, honestly, single or, married couples, your children are so important, and in my opinion, they should be your priority. And especially when people go through a divorce, you're hurting, whether you wanted the divorce or not, it's irrelevant. That family unit is broken, and that's a big change. That's a big nut to swallow. So, holidays are different. The home environment is different. It's a lot, whether, like I said, you want it or not. But the ones who really suffer are the children. Not saying the parents aren't suffering, and I've gone through it. There were days were not good for me. But those kids are innocent. Like, they didn't ask for this. They grew up with having a happy family, and then all of a sudden, it's stripped of them. And they're kids. They don't really have coping mechanisms. They don't know what they're doing. So you kind of have to really be selfless at that point, in my opinion, and put your needs or your depression or your worries aside and step up for those kids. Because they are hurting, they are scarred, no matter how well you try to hide it or comfort them, they're scarred. They lost what they knew. The familiarity, the comfort, it's gone. And like I said, at a young age, you don't know the coping mechanisms or how to handle that. So anxiety can start from there, just from the trauma of losing a parent in the household, whether it be, God forbid, a death or a divorce or, so kids are resilient, like my ex-mother-in-law used to say, but I felt like she left off the ending of that statement. Kids are resilient, but everything affects them and they can be screwed up for life. So you really need to be there for your children if there is a major change in the family dynamic. What are some coping mechanisms for children? Well, I actually taught a jump rope class to kids from like kindergarten to 8th grade when my children were younger, and there was some bullying or making fun of kids going on, I heard. So I brought everybody on the stage individually, and I brought in my boxing gloves and mitts, and I had them come up and I had them hit the pads with the boxing gloves, and they could either have kept it to themselves or said it out loud, something that upset them or was bothering them. And when you box, it brings up emotions and it helps get them out. So when I tell you every one of these kids, it broke my heart, had something that was really affecting them, whether it was being bullied at school, being called, made fun of because they were overweight, or fighting with, they're seeing their parents fight. They all would say these things, and it broke my heart. And I've used it with my kids too when they were younger, during the divorce, and they didn't know how to express themselves. So it helps. My point is, it helps to bring those emotions that they don't know how to deal with to the surface. So having your kids do that, get out a little frustration, and also bring up those emotions really helps. That's one example. Another one would be engaging in a sport that they like, and always speaking to your kids. I made sure I spoke to my kids every night. How's it going? Do you want to talk about anything? What's bothering you? Let me know. And a lot of times they would hold it in, but eventually it came out and they felt so much better that they expressed it and we communicated. Communication is the key, in my opinion, with kids. Can you tell me more about food fingerprinting? Well, like I said, food fingerprinting, in my practice, I combine the history of your functional nutrition. There's a long, 20-page intake form that really lets me get to know who you are, what you've been through, and also about your nutrition and food. And I analyze that. I also believe in following the recommendations of the blood type diet. That's not my theory. It's been around, but it's true. Like, certain foods you should avoid depending on your blood type, because your body does not process them or digest them well if you're not supposed to eat them. So I kind of do a combination of two. Then I also do offer a genetic test. I don't tell my patients they have to get it because it is not covered by insurance, because why would anything preventative be covered by insurance? But if they did want to get it, that also gives me more of an insight on what their problems are. If they have internal inflammatory issues, external inflammatory issues like histamine, gluten, casein, and what supplements are recommended for their issues. So I kind of take either all two, or if they do the genetic testing, all three, combine it, and I develop a food fingerprinting plan for them. And once you find your food fingerprint, and the first week or two, it's hard, I'm not gonna lie, because your body is detoxing, especially if you were accustomed to eating a lot of junk food or food that wasn't tolerated well by your body. So the first week or two are not easy, but then after that, your body starts to feel so much better, and you don't crave those foods anymore. And again, it has to do with the whole package. You have to heal yourself basically from the inside out, emotionally, spiritually, and your actual body needs. So once you do that, your body doesn't crave things anymore. You don't go on those binges, or you need to have that drink, you need to have that donut. You don't need to. Listen, I'm not saying I never have a piece of cake, but I'll have a little piece now, and I don't need it. I don't need any pacifiers. And that's a great place to be. How long does it take to see the results? Well, that depends on you. It depends on how diligent you are, how willing you are to follow the diet plan. So I would say, if you really follow it as recommended, within a month, you should start to feel so much better. And then the point in my plan is I get you on the right foods. I don't believe in measuring anything. You can't live your life like that. You can't be sitting there with a scale. That's ridiculous. You can't be in a restaurant with a scale. You're just eating healthy. And it's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. So you're eating healthy for your body and your body's needs. But once you feel better after a month, and let's say now you really want to kick it up, then we might change the diet a little bit. We might lower the carbs even more and increase the protein. Depends how much you're exercising and what kind of exercise you're doing. Again, it depends on the individual. How active were you before you started with me or started the plan? And what are you capable of doing exercise-wise? Do you have any injuries? So all this has to be taken into, consideration. But whoever it is, I would say within 3 to 6 months, you should start to see major, changes. Definitely within a month or two, you're going to feel so much better if you're diligent with it. And within 3 to 6 months, your body should really start to change. Just remember, you are not stuck in your situation, and you should not just accept your situation, whatever it is. Everybody can change. Everybody can change for the better. And having a positive attitude is truly the key. Because if you're one of those negative people, like, oh, woe is me, and this is always happening to me, the mind replays that. And it's going to say, okay, this is what you want, I guess. You're always negative. You're always poor me. This is always happening to me. So it's going to keep happening to you. Whereas if you flip the switch from negative to positive and, okay, this happened, but you know what? It was a bad situation, but I learned this. That's what you have to take out of it. And that's how I live my life. Like, I've been in bad relationships. I've learned something from everyone, though. They've made me stronger. I was in a job that was really taking a toll on me, but I felt bad for my patients. I didn't want to leave. I kind of knew what I was doing in the mode. So, I just kind of didn't want to leave. And honestly, if you don't listen to the warning signs, you will get an even bigger one. So I was given signs. My gut was telling me, you should really maybe look for something else. This is wearing you down, taking a toll on your health. But I just stayed. And literally, I was in a car accident, and the whole thing just was a disaster. So my point is, if you don't leave a situation, there are signs given to you. And if you don't leave, eventually they will really push you to leave. So you really have to just pay attention, listen to your body, listen to your gut, listen to the world around you, because you will be steered in the right direction. And always look for the positive. Great. I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you again soon.